My grandfather found me sleeping in the car. "Son, what about the house I gave you? Didn't you like it?" My mother answered. "We took it from him and gave it to his sister. She has a family and deserves it more." My grandfather took out his phone and started yelling. "My name is Matthias. I am 22 years old and I have always been a shy and reserved person. I'm not one to talk much, to make a scene, or to fight for what I want. I prefer to keep the peace, avoid conflict, and give in, rather than argue." And that very personality trait was exactly what my family exploited to destroy me. I have an older sister, Gabriella, who is 28. For as long as I can remember, she has been the absolute favorite of my parents, Ricardo and Paula, aged 52 and 50, respectively. Everything revolved around Gabriella. Her needs, her desires, her problems. Gabriella needs this. Gabriella wants that. We have to help Gabriella. It was always Gabriella. She married at 22 to Fernando, a guy I never liked. Neither of them worked regularly. Fernando did odd jobs here and there. Nothing stable. Gabriella didn't work at all, always using the excuse that she had to take care of her two children, Emma, 5, and Lucas, 3. How did they survive? Simple. They lived off the money my maternal grandfather Don Aruro sent them monthly, and from the little I could contribute when I had something extra. My grandfather is a 74-year-old man, a widower for 10 years, and a successful retired businessman who lives in a city 3 hours away. He's a man of strong character, direct, and has no tolerance for laziness or lack of ambition. And I was always his favorite, not because I tried to be, not because I asked him for things or manipulated him, but simply because, according to him, I was the only one in the family with a head on his shoulders and humility in his heart. I worked as an administrative assistant in a small company earning $800 a month. It wasn't much, but it was honest. I paid my expenses, helped at home when I could, and saved the little I had left. Meanwhile, my parents constantly pressured my grandfather to send more money for Gabriella. She has 2 children to support. They would say, "Ferno is looking for a job but it's difficult." In the meantime, they needed help. And my grandfather would send $2,500 monthly for Gabriella and her family, more than I earned working full-time, but it was never enough. They always needed more. There was always an emergency. There was always something that children urgently needed. 3 months ago, it was my 22nd birthday. I wasn't expecting anything special. I never celebrated in a big way, but that day, I received a call from my grandfather. "Son, I'm on my way," he said in an excited voice. "I have a surprise for you." He arrived that afternoon driving from his city. The whole family was gathered in a small 2-bedroom apartment where my parents, Gabriella, Fernando, the children, and I lived. Yes, 7 people in a 2-bedroom apartment. It was chaotic, cramped, and constantly uncomfortable. My grandfather walked in with a huge smile and a large envelope in his hands. "Happy birthday, Matthias," he said, hugging me tightly. "Come, let's all sit down." We sat in the small living room. My grandfather handed me the envelope. "Open it," he said, his eyes shining. I opened it with trembling hands. Inside were keys and legal documents. "It's a house," my grandfather said with tears in his eyes. "A beautiful 3-bedroom house in the Los Peñas neighborhood. Fully furnished, modern, all ready for you to move in. It's in your name. It's yours, my boy." I was frozen, unable to process what I was hearing. "Grandpa, I can't accept this," I stammered. "Yes, you can," he said firmly, taking my hands. "You deserve it. You're a good son, respectful, hard-working. You never ask me for anything, you never cause trouble. You always give without expecting anything in return. This house is my way of telling you that I see all of that I'm proud of you." Tears began to stream down my face. I hugged him tightly, unable to articulate words. It was the most incredible gift anyone had ever given me. I looked at my family. My parents had strange, hard-to-read expressions. Gabriella looked annoyed, envious. Fernando was frowning, but at that moment, I didn't care. I was too overwhelmed with gratitude and emotion. The next day, my grandfather returned to his city, but not before taking me to see the house. It was beautiful. 3 bedrooms, 2 bathrooms, a modern kitchen with new appliances, a spacious living room, an elegant dining room, a small but well-kept garden, all furnished with good taste. Everything was perfect. "It's yours," my grandfather repeated, hugging me one more time before he left. "Take care of it. Enjoy it. You deserve it." I drove back to the apartment floating on a cloud. For the first time in my life, I had something that was truly mine, my own space, a more promising future. But that cloud disintegrated the moment I walked into the apartment. My mother was waiting for me in the living room with a serious expression. My father was by her side. Gabriella and Fernando were there too. "Matthias, we need to talk," my mother said. "Sure," I said, still smiling. "What's up?" "It's about the house," my father began. "We've been thinking. That house is too big for you." My smile faltered. "What? You live alone?" My mother continued. "You don't have a partner. You don't have children. What do you need 3 bedrooms for?" "Well, I thought maybe in the future," I began weakly. "Your sister, on the other hand," my father interrupted, "has 2 children. Emma and Lucas need space to grow, to play. They're cramped here, and it's not fair," Gabriella added in a whiny voice, "for you to have that whole house to yourself while my children suffer in this tiny apartment." "But Grandpa gave it to me," I said, feeling panic begin to rise. "It's mine." "We're family," my mother said firmly. "Family shares. Family supports each other. I have supported you," I protested weakly. "I've given you money when I can. This is different." My father said, "This is a house. A place where your niece and nephew can grow up happy. Don't you want them to be happy?" And so began the weeks of incessant pressure. Every day was the same. Constant comments about how selfish I was for keeping such a big house, about how Gabriella deserved it more because she had a family, about how I was young and single and didn't really need it. "Think of the children," my mother would tell me every morning. "Don't be selfish." My father would remind me every night. "You're my brother," Gabriella would say with fake tears. "Don't you care about us?" "I'm shy. I hate conflict." And this was constant, exhausting, overwhelming. After 3 weeks of relentless pressure, I caved. "Fine," I finally said, feeling as if my heart was being ripped out. "Gabriella can have the house." The celebrations were immediate. Gabriella hugged me for the first time in years. My parents patted me on the back, saying I was a good brother. Fernando finally smiled at me. That same week, Gabriella, Fernando, the kids and my parents moved into the house my grandfather had given me. "You can stay here in the apartment," my mother told me casually. "It's already paid for. You'll be comfortable." I stayed in the empty apartment that night, feeling completely hollow, but at least I had a roof over my head. 2 days later, I came home from work, and my key wouldn't work. I tried again. Nothing. The lock had been changed. I knocked on the door. No one answered. I called my mother. No answer. My father, voicemail Gabriella. She had blocked me. Finally, a neighbor told me he had seen the landlord that morning. I called the landlord. Yes, Mr. and Mrs. Ricardo and Paula told me they no longer needed the apartment. He said they terminated the contract, and I've already rented the apartment to someone else. I stood there on the sidewalk with my work backpack, staring at the closed door of the apartment where I had lived my whole life. I had nowhere to go. I didn't have money for a hotel, let alone a deposit for a new apartment. My savings were minimal. The only thing I had was my old but functional car, a 15-year-old sedan that miraculously still ran. That night, I slept in my car. I parked it in front of the house my grandfather had given me. I reclined the seat, covered myself with my jacket, and tried to sleep. It was the longest night of my life. The next day, without a proper shower, I cleaned myself up as best I could in a public restroom at a gas station before going to work. No one at my job knew about my situation. I didn't tell them anything. It was too embarrassing, too humiliating. The following nights were the same. I would park my car in front of the house that should have been mine. The house my grandfather gave me. The house where my family now lived, comfortable and happy while I slept on the street. Weeks passed, then months. 5 months of living in my car, 5 months of back pain, cold nights, quick showers in public bathrooms, and eating cheap to save every possible penny. 5 months of seeing the lights on in my house every night while I slept in my reclined seat. Then one Saturday morning at 6 a.m., I heard a tapping on my window. I woke up startled and confused. The window was fogged up from my breath. I wiped a small clear patch on the glass, and my heart stopped. My grandfather was standing next to my car looking at me with an expression of utter confusion. I awkwardly opened the door. Getting out of the car with my face swollen from uncomfortable sleep, my hair a mess, my clothes wrinkled. My grandfather looked me up and down. He saw the blankets on the back seat, the makeshift pillow, the clothes hanging on hangers over the rear window, the fast food bags on the floor. His expression changed from confusion to horror. Son, he said, his voice trembling. What? What are you doing? Why are you sleeping in your car? I couldn't speak. The tears just started to fall. And the house I gave you? He asked, his voice breaking. Didn't you like it? Did something happen to the house? At that moment, the front door of the house opened. My mother rushed out, still in her robe, a look of panic on her face when she saw my grandfather. Dad, she exclaimed with false joy. What a surprise. We didn't know you were coming. My grandfather completely ignored her. He kept looking at me, waiting for an answer. Grandpa, I started, but my voice broke. What happened to the house? He asked more loudly, now looking back and forth between the house and me. My mother approached nervously. Dad, let me explain. Explain it to me, my grandfather said, his voice becoming dangerously low. Explain to me why my grandson is sleeping in his car in front of the house I gave him. My mother swallowed hard. Well, it's just that. We took it from him and gave it to Gabriella. The silence that followed was absolute. What? My grandfather whispered. Gabriella has a family. My mother continued, the words tumbling out. She has a husband. She has children. She deserves it more. Matthias is young. He's alone. He doesn't have a partner or kids. What does he need such a big house for? He's a failure who hasn't even started a family. Gabriella needed it more. My grandfather stood completely still. His face went through several emotions, disbelief, shock, and finally pure fury. Without saying a word, he took out his phone and dialed a number. What are you doing? My mother asked nervously. Officer, good morning, my grandfather said. I need a patrol car at this address right now. There are people illegally occupying a property that is in my name and my grandson's name. Please come quickly. You can't do this, my mother screamed. The children live here. Children shouldn't be living in a stolen house. My grandfather roared louder than I had ever heard him. He walked toward the front door of the house. My mother tried to block him, but he simply pushed her aside. Everybody out, he shouted as he entered the house. Get out of this house right now. I heard screaming from inside. Gabriella shrieking, Fernando stammering excuses. My father trying to calm the situation. The children crying, frightened by the yelling. This house belongs to Matthias. My grandfather continued to shout. I paid for it with my money. I gave it to him. No one, absolutely no one had the right to take it from him. Gabriella came out crying. Grandpa, please. My children need this house. Your children need parents who work. My grandfather yelled. Not a stolen house. Dad, can't we fix this? My father tried, his voice conciliatory. It was a misunderstanding. A misunderstanding. My grandfather turned to him with blazing eyes. Leaving your own son to sleep in his car on the street is a misunderstanding. He agreed to give us the house, Gabriella said defensively. You pressured him? My grandfather asked. Did you manipulate him? Did you take advantage of his good nature? No one answered. The answer was clear on their faces. 10 minutes later, 2 police cars arrived. My grandfather showed them the original deeds, clearly stating that the property was in his name and mine. The officers reviewed the documents, spoke with my family, and finally said, Sir, ma'am, you have to vacate the property. You have 1 hour to remove your essential belongings. We can't, my mother cried. We have nowhere to go. That's not the law's problem, the officer said firmly. 1 hour. Start packing. The next hour was chaotic. Gabriella cried as she packed suitcases. Fernando cursed under his breath. My parents begged my grandfather to reconsider. My grandfather stood firm, standing next to me in the yard, his arm around my shoulders. This should have been yours from the beginning, he whispered to me. And it will be now. Exactly 1 hour later, my family was on the sidewalk with their piled-up suitcases and bags. Gabriella was hysterical. My parents looked defeated. Dad. My mother pleaded one last time. At least don't cut off the monthly support. The children need to eat. My grandfather looked at her with an expression I had never seen before. For pure, profound disappointment. From this day forward, he said in a cold, firm voice, you will not receive a single cent more from me. The monthly money is over. The loans are over. Everything is over. But the children, Gabriella cried. The children are their parents' responsibility, my grandfather said without sympathy. You too, he pointed at Gabriella and Fernando. Get jobs. Work like my grandson has worked his entire life. Humble yourselves like you humbled him. Dad, please. My father tried. And you too. My grandfather looked at my parents with disgust. You are a disgrace. Favoring one child so much that you destroyed the other. Allowing them to steal your own son's house and leave him on the street. You don't deserve to be called parents. We're your family, my mother said desperately. Matthias is my family, my grandfather said, hugging me tighter. You are just toxic people, who happen to share my blood. And I never want to see you again. Understood. Don't come near this house. Don't come near Matthias. Don't contact me. It's over. He left them there on the sidewalk with their belongings and their shame. We went into the house. My house, finally mine. I'm really sorry, I said to my grandfather, crying. I was weak. I should have stood up for myself. You weren't weak, he said, also with tears in his eyes. You were kind, and they abused your kindness. But that's over. From now on, this house is yours and only yours. And I will make sure no one ever takes it from you again. The following weeks were an adjustment. I properly moved into the house. I slept in a real bed for the first time in 5 months. I showered in a real bathroom. I ate in a fully equipped kitchen. It was surreal. My family tried to contact me constantly. Calls, texts, emails. Matthias, please. The children are hungry. Matthias, we can't afford rent for an apartment. Matthias, your sister is suffering. 3 weeks after they were evicted, my mother sent me a long message. Matthias, we made a mistake. A terrible mistake. But, we're your family. You can't just leave us like this. Please help us. For the first time in my life, I responded firmly. Not this time. For years, I helped you. I gave you my money. I gave you my understanding. And when I had something truly my own, you took it from me without remorse and left me on the street. Now find jobs like I always have. Goodbye. And I blocked all their numbers. My grandfather visited a week later to make sure I was okay. How do you feel? He asked as we had coffee in my living room. Free? I answered honestly. For the first time in my life, I feel free. He smiled with tears in his eyes. That's what I wanted to hear, son. Today, 2 months after my grandfather rescued me, I live peacefully in my house. I've decorated the rooms to my liking. I've invited friends over. I've started to enjoy having my own space. I miss my family sometimes, but then I remember the 5 months sleeping in my car while they enjoyed my house, and I stopped missing them because I learned something invaluable. Limitless kindness is not a virtue. It's a weakness that others will exploit, and I will never be weak again. I am free in my house with my life, finally valuing myself, and that freedom is priceless. Subscribe for more daily stories.